I'll read a little of what Penguin has prepared of a van. Poet Anne Waldman has been an active member of the Outrider experimental poetry community for over 40 years as a writer, performer, professor, editor, magpie scholar, and infrastructure cultural political activist. She grew up on McDougal Street in Greenwich Village, where she still lives, and moved to Boulder, Colorado in 1974, where she founded the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics with Allen Ginsberg and Diane DePrima at Naropa University, the first Buddhist-inspired school in the West. She currently serves as the artistic director and chair of its celebrated Summer Writers program. She is the author of over 40 books of poetry. They have this, you can see this amazing list of books with her name attached to it, some in collaboration, but the highlights from this list, they're all wonderful. Highlights include Kill or Cure, Marriage, a Sentence, Structure of the World Compared to a Bubble, this one, Manatee, Humanity, Fast-Speaking Woman, this gigantic trilogy, Iovis. Do you have it?
On the chair.
I just want to hold it up because it's so long. And she co-edited a book called The Angel Hair Anthology, Civil Disobediences, Poetics and Politics in Action, and Beats at Naropa. Her work has been translated to French, Italian, Spanish, Czech, German, and Chinese. And she's been a student of Buddhism since 1962, and an ambassador for the oral revival of poetry and the praxis of bringing poetry into public space, appearing on stages from Berlin to Mumbai to Beijing. Her extensive historical, literary, art, and tape archives resides at the Hatcher Graduate Library in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And right now she's doing a week-long residency here in Athens. So we're very excited to have her, and we can have her in a very unique ATHICA way tonight. Thank you, Anne.
Great. Thank you so much. It's great to be here in this wonderful, very interesting place. New discoveries every day. Just saw the tree that lives in the building down the road here. This is extraordinary. Very beautiful, wonderful show. Meeting so many interesting people and spending time with some students as well. So thank you for coming out tonight. And I wanted to do a little mix of things here, basically focused around collaborative work or work that's inspired collaboration, and talk a little bit about those projects and also open it up at the end. So I'll read some pieces, some poems and texts, and I will show a couple of videos, short videos, primarily made with my partner Ed Bose, and talk a little bit about the origin of those, and also play something from the CD with my son, Ambrose Bye, who's a composer and musician, and we've been working together a lot, traveling on tour and teaching together, working with writers who want to bring their voice into the space with other voices. It's not necessarily just music, and working with ensembles and that sort of thing. So this is a great opportunity. It doesn't always come up to present this kind of work and have this kind of focus. And I think I think the tech will be working, but I'm going to start first with a collaboration, a bit of a collaboration. This is just out and just on exhibit now at the Poetry Center in Tucson, Arizona. And I was there last week for the opening of this exhibit, and I worked with a young artist named Noah Satterstrom. We had met in the Denver area. He's from the South. He's lived in Scotland and other places and shown his work. He has a great magazine online you might want to check out called Trick House. And you go to these little doors and go inside. They're wonderful collaborative projects, and I've shown some of the video work on the Trick House site. So we had done a couple of short collaborations. I was doing residency there. We'd stay up all night and work on things. And then I said, well, let's try something bigger. And I had worked on this text called Soldatesque, soldiering. So the French for soldiering, and it embeds some French. I was presenting some work in Belgium specifically, and I had asked people to translate some of the sentences. We were conjuring mainly World War I and World War II images. I'd recently completed the huge trilogy, this monster of a book, which I can barely lift. It's like part of my regimen of exercise, The Iovis Trilogy, which is a 25-year project taking on war, taking on patriarchy, taking on the deeds of Iovis, the horrible Zeus figure who's constantly impregnating, everything, trees, swans, and also the war machine. So I use that metaphor. It's a very rhizomic, montage-like project. It embeds other kinds of genres. It embeds letters of my grandfather, accounts of my father of World War II, 2 trips to Vietnam, so on. So there's a lot of history and weave. And at one point I thought, never again, I'm just not gonna, I've got to let this war go. And then soldatesque came up as a kind of coda. So often when you finish a poem or a project, there's some trace or residue, and this kept going on. So, and then I felt it was crying out for the images. So Noah created a 45-foot frieze, influenced by Cini's painting of the 15th century, influenced by Greek sculptural war epics, friezes of basically war epics, and of course this work was coming out of a sense of the epic. An epic traditionally writes of war, tells of the wars of your time, and as far as I'm concerned, it's been all my lifetime there have been wars, and we could all say that. So it's an ongoing kind of meditation. It's part of my challenge with a meditative practice. It's something I, clearly work with and attempt to, we founded the Kerouac School, which was a huge collaboration in 1974. That was part of our vision. It was a Buddhist-inspired site. It was a temporary autonomous zone, and we were invoking, William Burroughs taught there in the early years, Allen Ginsberg, of course, and many others of that generation, and we were invoking the third mind. So that's the theme of what I hope to do tonight, the third mind. And this is a term from Burroughs, and it comes out of this notion of collaborating, two minds collaborating together. You're working with other back and forth. Often it's not someone you necessarily have, are in some kind of, well, I wouldn't say you're in sympathy, but a very different approach, a very different genre. And so what comes out of that can be the third mind. And of course, Burroughs worked a lot with cut-ups. He worked a lot with interspersing his own writing, or cutting up his own writing, interspersing his writing with Joseph Conrad or Arthur Rimbaud. And out of these experiments came what he refers to as the third mind. So that's a term we invoke to talk about this kind of collaborative work. And so I'll read a little bit from the soldatesque and show you some of the images. I don't have a whole file yet of all of them, but and you really want to see the actual frieze, where you can read it like a scroll, and you can go back and forth in the space. And then the words are partially underneath and actually in the text itself. So I'll just do a few starts here. These look like little toy soldiers, moving into images of wounded children. At the end, there's a whole last section which moves into the animalized spirit, and you see, images of wounded deer and so on, and females sort of tending these violated animals. She wanted to be a soldier. She wanted to soldier and soldier her way through it. What was it? It was a gesture, geste. Paleolithic hunter in the tundra, perhaps. Imagine the costume, Paleolithic hunter in the tundra. It would be getting cold wherever the war was when you imagine it, or it would be too hot. Errorism is hot. You wait for another Cold War inside your head. Head is hot. Hot. She wanted to soldier. You never know what drives that person. Apparatus. to be within or without apparatus. You never know what drives a person. A place with flames is hell. Medical personhood in a white coat appears as an angel. You are joining the fray. Exhausting analyses of the world drive you. You would think soldiering would take you out of night, out of concept, out of signs, away from service, away from a symbolic universe, out the door, onto the imperial line, her symbolic sublimity. And if you could serve, would you? And if you would die, would you? A curvature in a uniform, a contained speech in a theater of war. Once out and compressed by others, others are seeing you differently. You want to love others, so many of them, all the inductees can't read you, so many crying ones. Is it ideological to notice if there were possible love here? Would that replace soldiering? Is it onerous to notice you are dwelling in potential soldierhood, trained and toughened? Can you react in an interesting way to a scene in Beirut, scene in the Swat Valley? How far are you in your body? How calibrated is the psyche? Point of no return. How is a matter of counting materialized in moments of waiting, hemmed in? Your breath is a giveaway. Delineation. Share the breath of the enemy. Speech de clôture dans un théâtre de guerre. One of your pals interested in oneiromancy. Predict an outcome, what returns? Switch out, deconnect. Does it take you by surprise, or is it economical to imagine it? Does it take you having a particular personality, or is it emotional to notice this soldiering? She wanted to soldier. What? The word stoical, the word sogiero, sogerial, the word sidereal. Try not to kill anyone, my soldier. Do you care? Does it take you? It a city? It a place you have to depend on, a job, it, as others might, into arms, it. She wanted to soldier, needing some action for her arms. Lift up this heavy machine. You are post-industrial. You, hey you, turn it around, that weapon. Turn it the other way around, toward the sky. She got on a bus, she got on a plane, she got on a boat, she got on a convoy joining others. Start again, she got on a convoy, she got on a scooter, she got on a bike, she walked, she got on a train, she got in a Humvee, then walked, she joined others. Walking, tracking, obeying with other bodies. Hey you, write your name here, I can't read you. Apparatus is a tough assignment, can't read you. You are either in or off the mark, above or below the mark. Is it a non-human agency? Apparatus, a non-human gesture, is an apparatus. She wanted to soldier, to embrace apparatus, or so she thought, but others who saw differently might convince you of a different approach. Look there, a sunset, a different approach. At the child's birth, her own, she was told there were miracles, and there would be some hope for another who would enter a world beyond apparatus. An arbitrary program is an apparatus. How dull, but she could be a miracle. Hopes pinned to the uniform. What is a desire to enter a path like soldiering feel like? Not arbitrary. All the itties come charging in. There is a condition not unlike Paleolithic for opportunity. Opportunity comes knocking. Beyond automatic, because an apparatus always obeys a system. She dreamed about some cultural objects after she went out, after she traveled on all those vehicles, after she went out, after she joined up, because remember, she was now not merely out, but out once, and it was time to sleep and dream and get up at dawn and inhabit a new site. About artifacts, old farm implements from the 19th century. Like that, tell your story. Cultural artifacts of her own tangible apparatus generation. They like things, scratch images, camping gear, a face of a post-it Holocaust philosopher, or rather the observations of a post-Holocaust survivor, now rare in the 21st century. But I wanted to also, there's a wonderful preface by the poet Bill Berkson, which is also his own meditation on war. And he talks about various poets and their responses. So I thought I'd just read a couple of paragraphs, and there are a couple of quotes. It's called Soldier Rest. There is no love interest in these modern wars. Gertrude Stein, 1943. The war, a handsome young Vietnamese guy from Burlington, Vermont, just now got it in the neck. Philip Whalen, 1966. Ted Berrigan, maybe some of you know the poet Ted Berrigan, author of the wonderful sonnets. Ted Berrigan said he heard a gunshot in the night in Korea outside the base. Kenneth Koch lost his glasses in a foxhole somewhere in the Pacific, bullets whizzing, killer Kenneth. Frank O'Hara stood on the deck of the USS Nicholas, spotting enemy planes, horrified that he might be the cause of the next great Japanese composers going down in flames. Robert Creeley drove an ambulance through Burma. What happens when poets go to war, as they will, but nowadays rarely? Some mystery in that. War is shit, wrote Ted in one of his Vietnam vintage poems. Some of us are just perpetual observers, like Tolstoy's Pierre threading through the remains at Borodino. For those who were in it, varying degrees of persistent horror seem inexorable. War-torn, battle-fatigue, shell shock, and the now clinically approved PTSD. A bellyful of scare quotes there. O'Hara went on to Harvard and wrote an attempted exorcism, Lament and Chastisement, its final choir screeching like out of a bad dream. Poets and painters have a high command, and he talks about the text a little. Nevertheless, we have rage, aggression, defense mechanisms, a taste for revenge, inordinate cruelty. This is all of us who don't go to war. We all have these things, appalling as they may be, as well as resentment, pride, and shame. I remember a poet friend in 1967 or so telling me he was getting to join the army because he said, I need to kill someone. Is that a real soldier, fuck or fight? The professional commander or hoplite is one thing. And then he goes on and talks about going down when he was being, trying to be, he was being inducted, but they sent a Viennese emigre camp psychiatrist, watched my hand shake when he told me to hold them out. The desk sergeant gave me a lunch ticket for the mess hall. An hour later, I sat drinking vodka at Frank O'Hara's place, wondering if I had missed out on some crucial experience. So this was a meditation, I think, from on this ongoing project. And it began actually I had a couple of students in Naropa who had been over in Iraq, specifically, and talked with them about that, and that was triggered the notion of a she in there going into this kind of maelstrom. So the text goes on quite a bit longer, but I think I will stop there with this project.